Arm yourselves, America. This is Defenders Live on Mojo 50 Radio. You can find yourself anywhere if you want to listen to our podcast, but if you want to hear us live, we are right here on the iHeartRadio app, Mojo 50 Radio. You can also find us on Facebook. If you go to Mojo 50 Radio on the Facebook page and then go to the video side, we are there. You can talk to us. You can chat with us in the box there on the Facebooks. You can also chat with us on the Twitters if you use @DOA Show, @Dylan Lyles, or @Steven Airey. Always, and as always, use the hashtag What I Learned Today. Why? Because we want to know. We want to know what you learned today. It is what it is. It's what we need to do. It's how we need to work. Before we get going, yeah, it is what it is. Hashtag it is what it is. Before we get going, Era Capital Management. I'm going to tell you about these guys. You see, do you manage your own investments?
No.
I don't. It's not easy. See,
No.
Save yourself some time and trouble. Contact Era Capital Management today. They will provide you with a free portfolio assessment. It's your life. Your era, invest in it. Era Capital Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Investing in all securities involves the risk of loss. Visit eracapitalmanagement.com or call them at 509-559-6229. That's 509-559-6229, eracapitalmanagement.com. Dylan Lyles, we have an extra button, an extra image up at the top of the screen. Tell me who this is. Who is this?
We do. That picture of that smiling young man, Chris Ford. Chris Ford is the host of Generation Y Conservative Podcast that can be heard pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. You know, the YouTubes, the Spreakers, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all those wonderful places, and so many more. I had stumbled across Mr. Chris in a Twitter post at some point, story that will somewhat tie into the vote that the Dems blocked about the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Chris Ford, welcome to the show, man.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate you. We were talking. Like I said, I talked to you a little bit. You have a very interesting kind of family story. Can you go just real fast, kind of give everybody like kind of a once over, like explain just exactly what it is that makes you so special and have a kind of an extra horse in this race?
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is probably jump back into the very beginning and how I came to the pro-life position that I have today. And that is when I was in high school, I would consider myself all around a liberal on almost every issue. And it's amazing that we go through life and we have all these little circumstances that kind of lead us into different areas as we grow up, and everything has moved me over to the conservative side. But at the time, what I realized now is, looking back, public education really indoctrinated all of us into thinking that abortion was really a means to an end for, just another way of birth control and everything. Mm-hmm. And at the time, when you're a student, you sit there and you listen to this stuff and you agree with what they're saying, because in the back of your head, you probably have that thought, hey, this is what's going to be on the test, this is what I'm supposed to say, and that's almost exactly where they get their hooks in you, It wasn't until I actually went to college that my first year there, I kind of got into, I guess, a relationship with someone, and we started seeing each other, hanging out and everything, and at one point in time, I drove her back, and we were just talking about some personal things, and this girl broke down crying to me and said that she had to tell me something, and it turned out that she just wanted to relay to me that she had had an abortion in high school, and it was a very emotional moment for her and I listening to it.
Right.
And she was wondering where that child would be today. Would it be a boy? Would it be a girl? How would she be as a mother? And as much as I was there trying to be there for her, in the back of my mind, I'm also sitting there as a listener thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is not what they teach you in school. This is real life stuff here, and this emotionally impacts people when they have an abortion. And that's something that's never taught in school. So immediately to me, my first reaction was, okay, I still understand where some people are coming from with their thoughts on why they would have an abortion, especially in extreme cases. But at this point, I've moved to that women are really physically and mentally affected by this. So I should really be a little bit more open-minded to the pro-life message. And I really moved my position from pro-choice to pro-life, except for the circumstance of rape or incest or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so from there, what happened was I started being a little bit more vocal about that and getting into conversations, actually talking about these things. And wouldn't you know, within a couple months, I was talking to my parents about it, and my mom stopped me, and she said, as I said that, except for in the case of rape and incest, she said, I got to tell you something. Just so you know, my grandfather, was the product of a rape. He's no longer around at all. And what happened was, I've been finding out more and more about this over the last couple of years. Back in the early 1900s, my great-grandmother, his mother obviously, was, and everything, she went and worked on a farm.
Right.
And on that farm, the husband and wife who ran it, at one point in time, the husband raped my great-grandmother.
Okay.
And, just to find that out, at first, for a couple of years, I actually thought that it was just a rape. And, rape is rape. I have people in my family and friends that have been raped, and that's a terrible thing all around, which is why I kind of took that pro-choice-ish stance and everything. But then to find this out, what ended up happening was my great-grandmother actually escaped that farm. I had a good friend at the time, and they talked it over, and she ended up being convinced to give her baby, my grandfather, over to her friend for her friend to raise, and my grandfather grew up referring to his actual mother biologically as his aunt, and his mother, or his the one he was adopted by as his mother. And it wasn't until later on that all this was found out and everything. And it's just insane to actually track what we have today, looking at my grandfather who had kids, who now that's our generation, us having kids. I have 3 daughters myself. The last time we checked, it was around 28 to 30 family individuals that wouldn't exist today if she had performed, if she had gotten an abortion back at that time. So I am technically a third-generation product of rape.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah, you think about that. Okay, third-generation product of rape back in the day. All right, so what you're going at, and what we need to get people to understand is that rape doesn't just affect one person, and not just rape, but abortion doesn't affect just one person. It affects generations upon generations upon generations as it continues down the line. Because if he had been aborted, you would never be here.
Right. That's right.
Things
would look a lot different, that's for sure.
Right. And so you add that in, and it's not something that anybody thinks about on a daily basis or a continual understanding of. We had a story. What was it? Monday? Was it Monday?
So.
Or was it when we took over for
Brandon?
It was when we took it over for Brandon. When we took over the show for Brandon, we had a story about this Chinese lady. She was 27 years old, and within 6 years, she had 17 abortions.
Oh.
Yeah.
17 abortions. Her OBGYN was telling her that literally it is unsafe for you to have children now.
Yeah, the odds of her carrying next to
at that point, how can she have children? You would wonder.
Yeah. Apparently, her boyfriend is very virile.
Yeah, right.
Lucky him. But no, and then, she's like not able to have kids. This whole thing is damaged, and going back. I love hearing your story. I mean, it's a tragic story. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but it like you said, it gives you pause because everyone today is all about the instant gratification. It's about the individual. The person who's usually the female who's going for the abortion in the first place is only thinking about herself and a very short distance down the road. You're not thinking about like the young lady you were talking to who, was starting to reflect on, would it have been a boy or a girl? What kind of a life would it have had? Personalities, all this stuff. No one ever thinks long term, and we're getting sucked closer and closer into this tight knit little circle where it's just right now instant gratification, out of sight, out of mind, and we could be done with it, to the point that you get some of these people who are proud of it. You know?
Yeah.
Right. Well, to that point, actually, one of the things I've been discussing a lot lately, in regards to, in line with what you're talking about with the instant gratification, there is I've kind of had this realization lately that we are looking at, I think, generations of people right now that advocate pro-choice options for reasons that kind of all mesh together. I think, number one, I think school indoctrination, honestly, is a very big one. I think that it numbs your senses to what's actually happening. And if they could actually see, you know, what's going on in the Unplanned movie that's just coming out right now, or coming out soon. I mean, they gave that thing a rated R rating. Despite it having no violence or anything in it. And I sent out a tweet that Live Action picked up, and a bunch of people started tweeting. I said, of course it's rated R. I mean, we're talking about the murder of a baby here. You know, it would be silly for them not to give it an R rating, and equally silly for parents not to bring their teenage children to that movie anyway and teach them what they're not learning in school. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When you come to that,
sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying, when you come to that, it is a point of action of the parents at that point. You need to, if it's rated R, but it's something that they need to know about. It's something that your kids need to know about, but it's rated R. Okay, well, it's an educational film, right? Yes. All right. I, as a parent, as an adult, need to take my teenage daughters and sons to go watch this movie. It's my job and my responsibility to make sure that they're there.
Yeah, but how many parents are actually like that?
I think that's a point that needs to be pushed home. Absolutely.
Yeah. Parents nowadays, though, are not going to take that kind of responsibility. They don't take that kind of responsibility. Now it's up to the government. It's up to the schools. It's up to everybody else's responsibility to raise their children. And no one actually takes that moment and sits down and says, hey, you shouldn't do this. Because I think if parents were a little bit more involved, then we also wouldn't have this issue with, you know, transgenderism and the, you know, fluidity and all this jazz. There would be a set path that and not to say that some people wouldn't still go that way, but it wouldn't be near as big of a, air quotes, movement as it is right now. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I do want to jump back to the one point, though. You guys were talking about I forget. The point that I was about to make, though, is this whole justification for supporting abortion, right? And I've come to this realization that I believe that besides the indoctrination of children in school these days, and those generations growing up and just having that flimsy understanding of what abortion is and what it is, like what goes into it and everything, I do believe that the majority of people that are defending abortions have either A, had one themselves and they're justifying their actions for it despite how it may make them feel mentally, right? Or B, know someone personally, like a friend or family member, who had an abortion and then feel like they have to justify their actions by supporting that person as a pro-choice person, so that they don't feel like they're letting them down as a friend. And I can tell you right now, I've had not only that experience with that girl in college there, but a fantastic woman who, her and her husband are in their 60s or 70s, I'm not sure. They used to go to our church. They moved to a different state now. And my wife and I actually saw them as mentors to us because of how they modeled their life around Christ. And she admitted to us that she had at least one abortion. I forget if there was more when she was younger, and how that mentally affected her. And you could not find well, you could. My point being, she's a very vocal pro-life advocate now. And I think that's probably one of the most beautiful things that we as conservatives, as Christians, as libertarians, as pro-lifers really need to embrace, is the fact that if someone has an abortion, And they come out of that experience seeing the flaws in their judgment at the time, and are a voice that we can use as a tool in the pro-life movement, and surround them with love and say, we get it. We understand what you just went through, and we're not going to condemn you and your actions. Instead, we can use this opportunity to reach those that feel like just because they had an abortion or don't know really what's going on, you can be that voice in our community and say, I went through it. It was a mistake. And we need to really embrace those individuals and show them compassion and love, I believe.
That is true. That is definitely true. And one of the places that, we enjoy, if you want to reach out and you want to be a voice to people, one of the better ways you can do it, go to patriotmobile.com. Why? Because they are America's only conservative cell phone company out there, and they're doing the exact opposite of the liberal gun grabbers and the disgusting policymakers talking about the New York abortion laws and blue gun control laws and the stalemate on the border and everything else. You can join thousands of Americans using Patriot Mobile and get reliable nationwide coverage and watch your hard-earned dollars fight for not only your First and Second Amendments, but the border security and the sanctity of life. Not only that, but Patriot Mobile donates a portion of every bill to conservative causes like Heritage Foundation, the NRA, and the Susan B. Anthony List. Switch to Patriot Mobile today. It is easy, and their unlimited talk and text plans start as low as $20 a month. If you need more motivation, mention Doc when you call 1-800-A-PATRIOT or when you visit them online at patriotmobile.com/Doc and get 2-month activation fee waived. See, is enough is enough. patriotmobile.com or 1-800-A-PATRIOT. patriotmobile.com/Doc. Join the fight today. And you were saying with reaching out. Now, one of the people that we interviewed before, the Culture of Life movement, Culture of Life. It's COL1972.com, COL1972.com. They're doing a very similar thing. They're reaching out through fashion, actually. They're using a fashion line and a fashion industry to help promote life and the standard of life overall and above all, trying to get rid of abortions and making sure that women choose life.
That's awesome. I believe, what I've been hearing on the radio a lot lately from conservative voices like yourself and I is just people coming out of the woodwork and saying, listen, we have let this narrative go on for way too long, sat in the wings, and allowed it to happen because of the social implications of what could happen to us for standing up against abortion. And we've just reached a point now where it comes down to you have to be a pro-life advocate. You have to stand firm. You have to get up on a roof and shout it from the rooftops that you are pro-life, and you have to spread that message, because for too long the pro-choice movement, the pro-abortion movement has taken control of this narrative and run with it and destroyed some of the moral fabric of this country, of the world, to be honest with you. To go back into the whole embrace culture too, one thing I would also point out is as Christian as I am, and we go to church and everything, there's certainly bad characters out there that shed a bad spotlight on every type of group that's out there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And there are certainly Christian groups out there that surround these Planned Parenthood clinics or march on sidewalks in public areas and everything that carry around the signs of the aborted babies and their body parts and everything. And it's shock value, But I believe that the message there is lost, because are you changing minds? How do you gauge that you've changed a mind? Where's the numbers to support that? And have you pushed someone away from the pro-life movement, the Christian movement, or anything else? I would much rather see an individual that is pro-life set up a table outside of a Planned Parenthood with a pot of coffee and a couple cups and a seat on the other side and say, hey, listen, I know why you're here. Do you mind just sitting down and talking with me for a little bit? And I'll be your brother or sister in Christ here, and let's just talk. Let's go over some options that maybe they won't go over with you in there. I want to show you compassion and love, and try to lead them out of that through example and love, instead of this shock value that's based, I believe, in hatred You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, what bothers me a lot is, it goes back to what you're talking about as indoctrination, is you start seeing these pictures and stuff of these little kids, these little girls, up, 5, 6, 7 years old, holding signs, talking about, it's their right and their body and blah, 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 blah. And it makes me cringe. I mean, I have 3 boys. I don't have any girls yet. But it's still that thought that there's people out there who are teaching these young girls at a very early age that it is okay to kill a life, to end a life, because in what equates to the name of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
It literally bothers me to absolutely no end that we sacrifice our children in the name of convenience and my needs and my wants, and nobody stops to think, because everybody's like, oh, well, it's my right, it's my body. Well, what happened to the right and the life of that child?
Mm-hmm.
There's these little things that, and again, I was raised in a little farm and homeschooled my entire life. So for most people, like, this is very simple for me. It doesn't make any sense. And I could be the idiot here, but I've never understood.
No, I don't believe you are.
Understood.
We homeschool our kids too. I think you were very privileged to go through that.
Yeah, he has a lot of white privilege
of schooling, because you don't get all the crap that goes along with public education. That's for sure.
Oh, I do. And that's why, like I said, I have quit my job and I stay at home and homeschool my kids, mostly for this kind of thing, is the indoctrination that goes on for everything. And it's not just abortion, but I mean, the crap that they're feeding our kids, and the parents are not doing their job. They're leaving up going, oh, well, I don't have a degree in education, so I don't know anything about it, so they must know more about it than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Or these psychologists saying that it's okay for these kids to be fluid in gender,
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to interject there real quick and say, you're speaking my language there, because if you ever have the chance, go on my YouTube channel and look up the video I did for this TV station tried to pick me up, and we shot a pilot. And it kind of fell through. The pilot went fantastic, but the closing segment I did was called A Breakup Letter with Public Education. And I basically presented it as a breakup letter with public education, and why I was breaking up with them, and we're through, You
gave a Dear John letter to public education.
Laid out in there. I think you guys would really enjoy it. And if any education topics ever come up that you want to discuss, I served on a school board. I was the youngest to do so in my community at the time, and education is a huge, huge topic for me. But I think what you were talking about right there is actually kind of a perfect segue into what you guys opened with, which is on Monday, Congress voted on this infanticide bill, and it's amazing to me the historical context of what we have gone through up to this point, which is, I think we can all agree that looking back since Roe v. Wade, for the decades that followed that, the terms that were always used was safe. What was it?
Safe and rare.
Safe but rare, right?
Right.
And
safe, legal,
you
and
kept
rare.
on
Safe,
you kept
legal,
on getting
rare.
this message that it was more like, as long as it's within the first trimester or something, that this was something that was okay to do, and they kind of justified it into, you had teachers in biology that would put up fetuses of a human and different animals and say, see, there's no difference. You can't tell me which one is a human. You're probably going to get it wrong, and this one's like a baby elephant or something like that.
Right, and they screwed it up. Let me hold you right there.
We're
We're about to come on a commercial break. I don't want to cut your thought, but I have to. Hard break. We'll be right back with the rest of that thought. Boom. Okay, so we have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, hate this daggone chair.
Sorry, I really didn't mean to cut you off there. It's just that hard break, hard line on everything. And that's
I completely understand. Yeah.
No, it's this
for
is
you,
good.
for you
This is
people
good.
on the Facebooks.
Yeah, this is that's still.
That's what we forgot to tell them
I,
about. Because it's been a serious topic, so we haven't really needed that.
I know. I was just getting ready to say, like, usually we try to yuck it up a little bit and try to make light of things, but I believe I speak for Steven when I say that, like, about the abortion thing is kind of our I don't know, our Spartacus moment. This is one of ours. Like, out of everything, like this is the one that, like, we vehemently are against in every way, and a lot of it comes back to our faith. Steven and I go to the same church and everything else, and so it's one of those things that we both see very eye to eye on it. And like I said, I have my own sister, and I might mention this a little bit later, but my own sister is very much for abortion. And yet she hasn't had any that I'm aware of, but she does have a 2-year-old little girl. And every time she says, "Oh," and throws this stuff up on Facebook, I'm like, yeah, but what if you did it to my niece? And she wouldn't be here. And all you hear is how wonderful she is and wonderful pictures. And I couldn't do without her. And, but you're talking and promoting doing it.
I think that's what you're getting at. Like, where's the disconnect there?
Yeah, exactly. And I used to be the same way. It was very much about, rape and incest, blah, 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 blah. I would argue that because of our faith, because of God, if my wife, God forbid, was raped and got pregnant, I'd be...
And we're back.
We are.
This is Defenders Live, and Dylan is still babbling on in the background, coming through the commercial break like he can't keep track of time. It is what it is.
That's my fault. I'm usually
5-0. Hey, have you guys checked out Tar River Arms yet? If you haven't, you should have. It's traguns.com, traguns.com. They are modernizing the online firearms sales to accommodate the online generation. They are making it easier and more comfortable than ever to purchase your firearms online. They are America's first virtual gun store. If you like brick and mortars, too bad. Go check them out on the 3D interactive experiences that you can view and inspect all your guns in a full 360-degree view. Zoom in. You can see in high-def quality if they even have a speck of dust on the handles and the hilts and the butts and the stocks and the barrels and everything else that they have available to you. You can see it all. It's amazing. Great guns, great prices, great services. Veteran-owned and operated. Kurt is an amazing person. He even has his own cell phone number sitting there as your customer service line that he pretty much answers 24/7. That's a crazy man right there. They have layaway and consignment options available to you today. traguns.com. traguns.com. Tell them Steven over at Mojo sent you. traguns.com.
Love that place, by the way.
We were hitting a commercial break, and we killed your entire train of thought. Can you get back to it?
Yes. Chris Ford, for those of you just tuning in for some weird reason, Chris Ford from Generation Y Conservative Podcast is joining us. We're talking abortion and all that good stuff. And yes, if you could continue, please, sir. It was getting good.
Okay, absolutely. So where I left off was basically we have these teachers in high school and everything that will throw up different species fetuses on the a slide projector in my day, or video screen and everything, and they try to trick your senses into, well, if you can't tell the difference between any of these fetuses and not pick out the human one, and they're so closely resembled, then it's not really a baby. I think that's what they're really trying to trick you into. So we had this whole, mentality for a couple decades of, hey, listen, at that point, it should be safe, but rare, and happen within the first, couple months of a pregnancy. And I think a lot of people could kind of go along with that. And then all of a sudden in the 2000s here, we're talking about this rush to defend, third trimester abortions and partial birth abortions, and then immediately following that, this infanticide bill.
Yes.
Not bill, but this infanticide declaration, basically, by Congress of, hey, if an abortion is botched and doesn't work, and the baby survives, and the baby is born,
just put the baby in a room.
Delivery table, that we're going to either have a conversation of allowing it to live, which, by the way, in the declaration says we have our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and everything, life being the first one there.
Right.
Or we're going to talk about letting it die or actively killing this baby. You know what I mean? And people rightly are freaking out over this thing because people on our side of the argument, on the pro-life side, have been talking about slippery slope arguments for a very long time, you know?
Yeah,
and hey, if we allow this, it'll lead to this. If we allow this, it'll lead to that. And they're, you know, this whole slippery slope argument is just ridiculous to the left and to pro-choice people. And yet here we are actively discussing now, not a baby that's inside the womb of a mother, which at that point they're still arguing the whole it's my body, it's my choice. We are literally talking about a baby outside the womb, no longer and killing that baby. And the only logical conclusion to draw from that in the slippery slope argument that we're obviously winning right now, saying that that is true, and how can you prove that wrong at this point, is the next logical step has to be, well, if you don't like your kid at 8, 9, 13, 16, hell, they're going off to college and you don't want to pay that college bill tuition, that we can actively kill them then. And the crazy thing is, if you look back on the internet, I would actually challenge people to look this up. Just search for something along the lines of British woman advocates suffocating children on YouTube. And
I remember that. We talked about
that. I do too,
10 years ago.
We talked about that,
British, oh, yeah. You've talked about it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was 10 years ago they were advocating that. How can you say that that's not the next logical step in this line of thinking for pro-choice people?
Well, and if that being the case, then why should we have a law against murder as a whole? Like as a whole, forget like even suffocating children by this British lady. Just throw the whole thing out and just let it be a giant free for all.
I mean, if
I'm glad you guys saved me from doing a British accent. By the way, I was going to.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But it's true. Like what at that point, we might as well just say murder itself is no longer illegal, because theoretically then at that point, if I killed you or if I killed Steven, then I theoretically am just doing your mothers a favor.
Well, it depends.
Technically,
it depends.
If they wanted you or not. That's all.
Yes.
And that
at that
I've
moment.
again, simple homeschool brain does not compute this whole thing. It doesn't. What is the difference between? And it goes back to like you were saying, where this whole abortion bill or the bill that they were voted against, where if the botched abortion happens and this baby comes out, is literally laying there in pain and struggling just for own life, and these people are discussing whether it should live. Why should there be a discussion? You've already birthed the baby. The hard part is done at this point, because that was the whole point of, well, you abort it before it's born, so you don't have to go through all the labor and all the trouble. Well, you've labored it. It's done.
It's labored.
So why would you end the life at that point? Why would you even have a discussion? And Steve and I have mentioned this. I might have mentioned this the other day. There are people who work in hospitals who have connections, and some people are actually from Child Protective Services, are in the hospital. They are ready and willing to take that child and send it off to a family who needs it, who would love it and take care of it. Why do you have to take that moment to discuss whether or not this child lives? I can't wrap my brain around that at all.
What you're talking about there is actually the next logical step for our argument on our side being pro-life, which is, listen, there's no denying that the adoption system is overburdened and an expensive process.
Way too
and
expensive.
if we really want to pursue changing abortion policy, we also have to actively changing adoption policies as well. I have friends that have been waiting to adopt another child for a long time, and to get their first child, they waited an extremely long time, and it's a mortgage. Well, more than a mortgage. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars to adopt a child, and how many people can afford to support a child but can't afford that upfront cost at first? Look, when it comes to having kids and everything, you're never ready. You're never ready. As you could be, you could read all the what to expect when you're expecting books that you want and everything as much as you want, but when that baby comes, it will change your life. and you have to adapt to it. But if you're already in a financial rut to start with, to start that process, and then having to support the child after the fact, that's where it gets really tricky. And we do have an overcrowded adoption system, and I think we need to actively reform that as well in conjunction with abortion policy as well.
Agreed. I'm right there with you, because like I said, my wife and I are in the process of trying to look into adopting, and it is, they do not make it easy for anybody, for someone to put a kid up for adoption, or for someone who wants to adopt. Like you said, there's the mountains of red tape. The money financially is astronomical, but they complain about it. Well, yes, because murder is better. I don't. I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense to me.
But then they also complain about people going overseas. And
right.
saying, oh, yeah, getting the kids from overseas, isn't that more expensive? No, it's not.
It almost balances out the same.
It balances out the same, but you can get the kid faster.
That's all it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane. But, there's just so much stuff that feeds into this topic that I think, I would love to have a fun show with you guys and be laughing and joking about a bunch of things, because that's my show. Like I'm along the lines of being humorous all the time and trying to make things funny, because politics is a dry subject, and you have to make it funny.
If you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
So many things in this subject area that come at you from all different angles. I mean, what was it, last year that we saw the statistics and numbers coming out of Iceland about them being so happy that they have a 0% Down syndrome rate now because they abort them all?
Yeah, it's not that they have 0% Down syndrome. It's that they kill all of them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think the another scary thing is, you look at the Charlie Gard case, and who was the other child over there?
Alfie
Evans.
Yes.
Alfie Evans. They're, by the way, a great story, as great a possible story as you could possibly have to that. They just had another child, so they're happy about that, but still sad and reflecting in that baby's face, seeing Alfie Evans as well, and it's just a terrible thing to deal with. But my point being, you take those two examples and you try to force people to look at what's going on in these healthcare systems overseas, and you see it's not a conspiracy theory. They focus on the 18 to 45-year-old group of patients over in the UK. And if you fall below that 18-year-old, you haven't lived life long enough yet, so you won't miss it. If you're over 45, you lived a long enough life, so it doesn't matter anymore. And they will take this decision of, you're in the hospital. Do we save this person's life, or do we take the organs of this person and donate it to the 18 to 45-year-old group? And this is actually like a cost-saving measure at this point, because their healthcare system runs them into the ditches with everything. And that's a scary thing. And people are not waking up to the fact that they are advocating for that type of thing here, along with all these abortion policies that they're pushing through. I mean, we're talking about absolute just evil in the world right now. And I think, if we're going to push it into politics, this should be the running campaign of Donald Trump, that these people on the other side, every single Democratic candidate in Congress right now that's running for president, voted against this bill that would protect infants born from botched surgeries, and want them to be just killed because that was the outcome that was supposed to happen.
Yep, that's really true. And guys out there, if this subject makes you sick to your stomach like it does us, one thing that you may want to do is you may want to actually try to help your stomach out. Go to lovemytummy.com/mojo. Use the promo code mojo. You can get a 3-month supply of Atrantil. Atrantil is America's first over-the-counter proven solution for bloating and GI issues. It's developed by a board-certified gastroenterologist. It is safe for daily use. 100% natural polyphenols designed to address bloating problems where they begin, not just treat the symptoms, guys. It's not a probiotic or an antibiotic. It's a blend of polyphenols that's desired by your body to work and regulate your gut and in methane production, and then function as a postbiotic to benefit your overall health. It's your body's health that starts. Not only it starts and ends in the gut. So go try it out today. Go to lovemytummy.com/mojo, promo code mojo, lovemytummy.com/mojo. Go try Atron Teal today. Make yourself better. Make your life better. Live a little better. And so speaking of legislation and pushing through things and the campaign trail, I find it funny that we're going to that point, but I really don't think that legislation's really going to help very much right now. I'm more on the edge of, we've gotten to we have our logical conversations, right? We have our logical conclusions. We talk to these people, and we're willing to sit down. And you were mentioning earlier, the people that are standing outside of abortion clinics, with the big signs and stuff, those people aren't willing to sit and talk. They're just willing to fight and fight and fight. And you need to fight. There has to be people willing to fight, but you're not going to change hearts and minds fighting. You're not going to change a heart and a mind fighting. And when you have such indoctrination, like you have Planned Parenthood actually coming into the school systems now, teaching this crap under the guise of sexual education.
No, shut up.
I'm not joking.
I know.
We talked about it. So you have that. You have these people coming in, and they're talking to the schools. It's not just indoctrination from the schools themselves. It's Planned Parenthood funding these organizations, going into the schools, making sure that they talk about abortion rights and abortion, because it's not abortion rights. There's no such thing as the right to kill a child.
Nope.
And it's the constant bombardment on a daily basis. And so what we're trying to do, what we're trying to think of are ways to come together. Yeah, ways to come together and get into the culture, to actually infect the culture the way that the left has infected it over the past 150 years, basically.
Yeah.
So in that notion, in that idea, because politics is always downwind of culture. It doesn't matter what's going on.
Right.
I don't care what you see in politics. It's already happened in culture 20 years prior.
Yep.
So we have to find a way to really affect our culture. If we want to do it quickly, we have to be able to affect hearts and minds in a very large way. Do you see any way for us to possibly push that narrative and push that ideas going forward?
With gentleness and love, honestly. I think you guys are tracking so hard with me right now on what exactly you're saying. I was going to end everything with you saying, listen, this is an issue that can only be solved at the education level, both in schools and getting the message out there and in the home, and working on hearts and minds. I agree with you. I think if we were to overturn Roe v. Wade, as much as that would make me happy, it would cause chaos in this country and animosity and hatred towards each other. And I don't think we can go that route. I think we do have to change hearts and minds on that. But I do have some funny tips for you, I guess you could say,
sure,
in regards to when you're actually approaching these types of conversations with people. Okay. There's two things that people typically say when they're arguing against you. Number one, we've all heard this one. It's just a clump of cells, right? Well, my answer to that is always, yes, you're right. And you are still a clump of cells, neatly organized by our Creator. So, there hasn't been no drastic difference besides the growth of that clump of cells. So that's a fun one to throw at them. But the other one, and most importantly, I think, is without stooping to the mudslinging level and getting down into the dirt, into the trenches of arguments with the left the way that they do, with name-calling and everything. I think that we do have to both notice and appreciate the fact that the left's tactics of persuasion have been working. And are we going to look at that and scoff at it, or are we going to look at it and learn from it and either adapt it and modify it or use it against them, right? And so that kind of leads to my second point, which is one of the other main arguments that you hear all the time. Go figure, ironically, we don't have a woman speaking to us right now, is that this is not a men's issue because it doesn't deal with men, right? So men have no place in talking about it. So let's play by the left's rules right now. If that's the case, then for the duration of this conversation, I identify as a female.
Right?
Right?
Done.
It's 2019, man.
After
you
we're
can do
done, after we're done with the conversation, I'll go back to being a male. I'll have a fluid conversation with you.
Oh, but you can't do that. You can't claim it just for that one little case. Oh, really?
Oh no, really? The rules are out the window with these people at this point.
There are no rules. I mean, that's the whole point. And that's funny. It is a funny thing, and it's a quip. But at the same point in time, that's not really going to change anybody's heart. That's going to piss them off. You know?
No. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, so sometimes you're probably not going to get anywhere with those types of people that you end up at that point anyway, because at that point, they're really arguing that you are not allowed to have an opinion on abortion because you're a male.
True.
So how far are you really going to get with that person anyway?
Not very far. No, not at all.
Not far at all. So.
That's one of those where you throw that line out because you know for a fact that person is so hard pressed in their ideology and in their misunderstanding of what reality is that it's going to take somebody closer to them to actually fix that issue.
Yeah, and at the same time, you never know. You may have them sitting and stewing on the fact that you actually used one of their arguments against them, and they may think to themselves, my word, maybe that is a ridiculous argument that you can identify as whatever you want at any point in time because they just used that against me. And I had no comeback to it.
Well, that's the point. When you're talking about debate and things like that, they don't think about debates. Remember, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tells us that we need to make sure that we only think about the moral, and by moral she means her morals.
I was going to say, you have to be clear about that.
Moral outline of life and not the facts. No facts, just moral, and only her moral outline.
Yep. Well, there's
absolutely.
There was that. Don't forget that one video of that delightful young lady who sat there was yelling at that guy about how it's not about facts, it's about feelings. It's
you got to give into the fear. Yeah.
Yes. The fear is the feelings, and you can't. Facts don't mean anything. It's all about emotion.
Right.
Bless her little heart.
Can you imagine if we actually legislated that way, the direction that this country would go? It would be torn apart.
I don't have to imagine. We've been doing it for years.
We've been doing it.
True. Yeah, that's true.
It's coming to haunt us, unfortunately, and it's.
Hey, sorry, but before you end the segment and everything, if you can give me a heads up, I just want 2 minutes to talk to you guys about something else then too.
Oh no, keep on going, man.
Go ahead, man.
We're good.
Floor's yours.
Well, I had mentioned in the conversation on Twitter that I knew Doc Thompson in a slight way that worked with you guys and everything on Mojo, and Doc Thompson and at the time his co-host Skip Lacombe really tried to help me get a job at the Blaze at the time when he was working there. I had put together a video based on my marketing experience to try and help the Blaze, but I wanted to get their attention to go viral enough that they wanted to contact me for a position that they didn't have at the time. I wanted to kind of blow their minds on it. And Doc and Skip were the first ones at the Blaze to really advocate for me, got Jeffy involved. Glenn Beck had the presidents of his company call me to set up phone meetings and everything. And while all that fell through, I met Doc and Skip at the last 2 CPACs. I'm going to go and listen to Mojo and the morning show with him, and just it's crushing. It really is. And just a guy that tried to help out a guy that was a nobody with a podcast, or to be honest with you, he actually got me into doing the podcast. He said at CPAC, he's like, listen, your video was awesome. I would expect someone from the Blaze to contact you, but if there's one piece of advice that I have for you, I would tell you, keep doing videos. Just stay in front of everybody with videos and just keep on doing them. And the only logical conclusion to that for me was to actually start up a podcast and start talking about everything that was on my mind politically. And so I owe the little bit of podcast share that I have out there in podcast land to Doc Thompson and Skip Lacombe. And it's just, so when that hit, it really hit me hard. So I just wanted to extend my condolences to the Mojo family, because we're praying for the comfort of everyone with you guys. And it's a terrible thing, thing.
We appreciate it. I know the other guys do too, because the funny thing is, Steven and I owe our show. We wouldn't be where we're at right now doing what we're doing if it wasn't for Doc. I mean, you know, one day I'm going to grow up and be just like him. But until then, I'm going to keep doing what I do.
I see that you guys have adopted the Spanish guitar sound for AOC, though.
Oh well, yes, that's across all Mojo platforms.
Oh yeah, that was acquired from almost the beginning. I think everybody.
I think you took that from Ron. You got it from Ron directly.
We did, and actually we got it before we got on Mojo. I had known Ron and met him at CPAC, and we were talking, and he was talking and everything else, and I said, can I get that? He's like, sure. So we've been using it too.
We really want it.
It's amazing. But yeah, no, and we like I said, we appreciate it but we share with it. Like Doc was an inspiration to a lot of people, and like I said, we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for him and convincing Ron and everyone else to give us a chance. And so we're right there with you.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He was just that guy. That's all. That's who he always was.
Right. Yeah, I mean, hey, there's no better way to wake up in the morning than to humor when it comes to the news, and he had that pegged as a niche for him, like no other that has come before or since then. I think, I think Steven Crowder does a great job of doing the late night type shtick with comedy and politics and everything, but Doc was just a natural at it, and really those are the only two in the industry that really excel at humor. I think the rest of us can try as hard as we want, but it comes naturally to people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we definitely have a long way to go.
CPAC is this week, though, and
yes, it is.
I'm really excited. There's going to be a lot of people there. I myself will be there as well, working the event for half the day on every day, and then attending it. So,
well, if that's the case, make sure you go check out the Mojo 50 booth or the area for Mojo 50. Matt Locke is going to be there with Sam Sorbo.
Yep.
So Matt Locke and Sam Sorbo are going to be there. They love meeting new talent, especially somebody who has a good voice and a good back of how to do it and what to do. And heck, we always need some new talent.
Well, I think even just collaborating with each other and being able to talk with one another, personality to personality on certain topics, I'm really enjoying this kind of ice melting, I think, over the last couple of years where conservative radio has broken down the barriers with each other and said, you know what, we're not competing with each other anymore. My word, we are surrounded by the enemy at all times, and the left wants to scream and shout and throw tantrums over Fox News existing on cable, being the only voice of the right, and rarely, I would add at this point. But
they used to be.
We're surrounded in radio, in television, in social media. We're shut down, and I think people are like, guys, we got to come together on this. We need to start working together because otherwise we either stand together or hang alone, basically.
Exactly. The left and progressives and the left are all but completely unified in everything. They've taken over everything and they've done it together. And like you said, there was a point, and praise God, it's getting better. But there was a stretch where, everybody was kind of an island unto themselves, and we can't be that way because, I mean, when you're like that, you can't be shocked that you're not getting out into the culture and you're not changing hearts because whose voices are they hearing the loudest?
Exactly. It's
not yours.
More voices, not less. Hey,
exactly.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
Absolutely. Just search for the Generation Y Conservative on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can also listen to the audio portion of the podcast on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and more. Just search for the Generation Y Conservative. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
thanks,
we appreciate having you on. Up next, guys, I believe it's Adrian Slade. Adrian Slade's show is coming up next with the Rants Out Loud, that guy. As always, good night, Doc Thompson. We know where you are.
I'm young. You go home.